Hello, Augies Worldwide. I'm Dave Kassler, ham radio call sign KE0OG, here today with Ham Radio Answers episode 197. At last we have good weather, so this is the long-awaited video about the MFJ-2104 Octopus. There were two prior videos about the Octopus. Episode 182 describes the unboxing, and episode 183 describes putting up the antenna and the preliminary testing I did at Quartz Fest in Arizona in January. Now, finally, I can show you putting it up properly and the surprisingly good test results. Let's take a look at the Octopus antenna. In this photo, it stands in the foreground atop a 20-foot mast. It covers 4 bands, which you choose when you order the antenna. It's designed for portable use, but will also serve as a small footprint antenna with minimal visual impact. Each element consists of a black tube that contains a loading coil for that band, plus a silver-covered stinger that slips in and out of the tube. The element is tuned by sliding the stinger in or out of the tube. The MFJ-2104 Octopus Antenna, so named for its 8 appendages, is available from MFJ or any of its dealers for $250 US. It ships in 2 boxes, one containing the hub into which all the hamsticks screw, and the other box containing the hamsticks themselves. You can order the Octopus with any 4 HF bands you want, from 75 meters, which is the upper portion of 80 meters, to 10 meters. The Octopus is available in 2 versions, the MFJ-2104 for up to 150 watts and the MFJ-2104H for up to 600 watts for US $480. The antenna itself is based on a December 2007 QST article by Jeff Haynes, N1GY. Each of the hamsticks is designed to be used as a quarter-wave vertical element on a large magnetic mount atop your car or truck for single-band HF mobile. In the Octopus implementation, 2 hamsticks on the same band are mounted opposite each other to form a dipole antenna. As you can see in the photo, there are 2 20-meter hamsticks opposite each other, so what you have is a dipole. When MFJ sent me this antenna for review, they included hamsticks for 75, 40, 20, and 10 meters. Electrically, this is a fan dipole. MFJ supplies a feed point lead that has quite a number of ferrite cores on it to act as a choke balun, so you can feed this with coax. The tabs on the hub to which the hamsticks attach are easy to bend, so be careful once this is put together. I advise lifting this assembly up and atop a mast, or at least lay the mast atop a ladder so this can be attached without having to put a bending moment on those tabs. I tweaked several of the tabs when I mishandled the antenna at Quartz Fest in January, but fortunately they bend back easily. I'm not sure how these tabs will react in high winds, but so far so good. Julian Wanneberger, my assistant, and I put the antenna together and mounted it where the MFJ cobweb was before. I used my FA-VA5 graphing antenna analyzer, which I recently did a video on, to characterize the antenna. We started with a configuration in which the length from the bottom of the stinger to where it emerges from the mounting nut was 4 inches on all the hamsticks save one. That one had a stinger bent at Quartz Fest, so we had to finesse that one a bit. This graphic shows a small chunk of the 80-meter band from 3.7 megahertz to 3.75 megahertz, a slice of only 50 kilohertz. As originally set, the lowest SWR was 1.15 to 1. You can see the SWR scale on the left of the graph. Note that the 2-to-1 bandwidth, the range in which you can tune without causing the radio's transmitter to start reducing power too much, is only 24 kilohertz. If you have a tuner in your radio, you can probably utilize the entire 3-to-1 bandwidth, which is 42 kilohertz. This, of course, is nowhere near the extent of the 500 kilohertz wide 80-meter band. This very narrow bandwidth is to be expected with a high-Q, highly loaded, very much shortened antenna. If you opt for the 75-meter band as part of your Octopus, you will need to carefully select which portion of the band you want so that your favorite net is covered. Our club has a weekly net on 3992.5 kilohertz, way outside the region this chart shows. Remember, this is just the chart showing the results of the initial setting. By the way, the green squiggle is the Smith chart results. I left them in for Smith chart aficionados. I'm afraid I can't offer much in the way of interpretation of these green squiggles. 40 meters is better. The antenna is still very narrow-banded, as can be expected from a high-Q, highly loaded whip. The low SWR point is at 7032 megahertz, one of the QRP calling frequencies. The 2-to-1 bandwidth is about double that on 80 meters and covers 45 kilohertz. The 3-to-1 bandwidth is about 75 kilohertz, a quarter of the band. 20 meters is more interesting. As set, it's clear we need to shorten the hamstick, as the tuned portion is well short of the 20-meter band. However, the 2-to-1 bandwidth is 283 kilohertz, not the entire band, but you can still cover all the single sideband portion of the band if you want. And using a built-in antenna tuner, you can cover the entire band within the 3-to-1 SWR limits. Regarding 10 meters, although the initial tuning on 10 meters is low by a couple megahertz, it can be seen that the 2-to-1 bandwidth will cover the entire band. How is it that at higher frequencies the SWR curve spreads out? Well, for a given length, the amount of loading required to resonate goes down as the frequency goes up. Hence the Q comes down, allowing for more forgiving tuning. Okay, the next thing to establish is how much we need to change the stinger lengths to get closer to the right tuning. We wanted to establish how much a change in dimensions would move the tuning. So we took the antenna down so we could insert the stingers 1 more inch into the body. This photo shows the mast taken apart and the antenna resting on the ground. Julian, my assistant, whom you've seen introducing the technician training videos, was elected to make the changes by moving each stinger further into the core by 1 inch. The idea was to establish how many kilohertz per inch that length changes would make, so we could do one further adjustment after that. At least that's what we hoped. Julian carefully measured each stinger to see how far it went into the core and adjusted each for 5 inches from the end where it emerges from the mounting nut. Julian then put each stinger back into the appropriate core and then tightened them finger tight for testing. The antenna, including all the hamsticks in the core, weighs 7 pounds. At the end of a 10-foot mast, that's 70 foot-pounds. And at the end of a 20-foot mast, that's 140 foot-pounds. So this thing can definitely get unwieldy. This video, taken from drone, shows the work required to raise the antenna 4 feet at a time, add another 4-foot mast piece, and then raise it another 4 feet until it was 20 feet high. After the mast was about halfway up, we leaned it back against 2 of the guy ropes for stability. This is military surplus mast, kindly given to me by Ken Mixon, KC6WOK, and his wife Kathy, KD6CAF, at Quartzfest. So we had to get the guy ropes straightened out, which took a moment. We knew they were the right length because we tied them off after the first setup and test. By the way, I strongly recommend that you get help putting the antenna up. I could not have done this myself, and thank Julian for his expert and strong-armed assistance. We had 5 of these mast sections, and when done, placed the bottom on a piece of wood to keep it from digging into the ground. This setup is probably typical of what a portable setup might look like. The ends of the guy ropes are attached to 2-foot-long stakes pounded about 18 inches into the ground with a sledgehammer. By the way, pounding stakes into the ground is one of the few instances when the right answer is to get a bigger hammer. Okay, let's look at results band by band. Remember that we moved all the stingers in by 1 inch. Let's see what happened after that first adjustment, and then look at the results of a second adjustment. Of course, we had to take the antenna down, make the second adjustment, and put it back up. We adjusted all the bands at once to save on the need to lower and raise the antenna. On 75 meters, the first adjustment by 1 inch moved the point of best SWR up by only 20 kilohertz. That's not very much. So for the second adjustment, we moved it 2 more inches into the tube. That moved the point of best SWR up by 42 kilohertz, consistent with the 20 kilohertz per inch from the first adjustment. Note that if you want to move it any significant amount, you run the risk of putting the stinger down into the loading coil itself. You can determine which part of the tube is the loading coil because it's wound pretty closely and not spread out like on the rest of the core. If you put the stinger into the core of the loading coil, it will cause the hamstick to overheat and possibly melt. Not a good outcome. So you'll need to trim the stinger to prevent going into the loading coil's core if it comes to that. For 40 meters, 1 additional inch puts the sweet spot right atop the FT8 frequency, so I opted not to make further adjustments. Interestingly, after we made second adjustments to the 75, 20, and 10 meter hamsticks, I noted that the 40 meter sweet spot moved by only 600 hertz. I was pleasantly surprised by this because the electrical configuration of the antenna is that of a fan dipole. And often fan dipoles are hard to tune because tuning one of the dipoles can affect the tuning of others. Yet in this case, it looks like the 40 meter tuning is pretty much independent of tuning the other dipoles. With the first adjustment, we discovered that the sensitivity to tuning for the 20 meter band is 110 kilohertz per inch. Julian inserted the stinger an additional 4 inches for a total of 9 inches. This moved the low SWR up by 436 kilohertz. A further adjustment of about a ½ inch would bring the low SWR point to mid-band. The antenna is less than 3:1 SWR across the entire band and could be used by a rig with a built-in tuner. This is very nice, with a 2:1 bandwidth of over 260 kilohertz. The tuning rate for 10 meters is 150 kilohertz per inch. Note the weird shape of the SWR curve. I suspect this may be due to unequal length stingers. The 10 meter band is quite wide, covering 1.7 megahertz starting at 28 megahertz. Julian then adjusted the 10 meter hamsticks to move the stingers a further 3 inches in. This moved the sweet spot to 28.3 megahertz in the area of most 10 meter activity. I think this is a pretty good place to leave it. Okay, so we've tuned the antenna for 4 different bands. The next step is to have some QSOs to see how well the antenna performs. As a matter of fact, it performed rather well. I was surprised that such short hamsticks could do a good job on HF, but they do. I used my main rig for the test, a Yaesu FTDX 3000, set for about 25 watts on FT8 and 100 watts for single sideband. I also had my SDR radio, an SDR Play RSP1A, attached to the Yaesu's RF output to provide a more detailed spectrum scope. I did the tests in the middle of the day, and 80 meters was closed up tight, as is normal. On 40, I found a little FT8 activity and had one QSO. 20 was wide open for FT8, and I found myself working QSO after QSO for a total of 5. I switched to 10 meters and found more FT8 activity and had 3 QSOs. Then I went back to 20 meters. On the SDR radio, I heard a CQ, so I dialed in the frequency on the FTDX 3000 and answered in single sideband. John, VE7MTW in British Columbia, and I chatted for 11 minutes with excellent copy both ways. Now, let's put all the charts away and talk about this antenna. The MFJ-2104 Octopus is designed for portable use, though it takes 2 people to set it up, or for a small footprint HF antenna for use in small backyards. Tuning it requires going through a process like I did to determine proper tuning for each band. The antenna's Q is very high on 75 and 40 meters, so the tuning range is small but workable for specific purposes. I was pleasantly surprised how easy it was to work FT8 contacts. I was extremely pleased with how well my 20-meter single sideband contact went. At first, I thought I might be down on this antenna a bit because it does take quite a bit of effort to tune the first time. However, given the nice linear frequency response to how much the stingers are inserted, I think the tuning will likely be pretty repeatable with subsequent installations, making this a good portable antenna for field work with a vehicle or RV to attach it to. I strongly recommend 2 people or more to put this up. I was delighted by how well it worked. Many portable antennas work only 1 band at a time, but this will work 4 without the need to take it down and adjust it. Note the narrow tuning on 75 and 40 and plan for it. One other thing I might mention, these are dipoles, and there's a recommendation in the advertising for MFJ that you might want to use a rotator with this. I really don't think that's going to give you any benefit. These, being so short, are pretty omnidirectional. So do I recommend this antenna? Yes, I do. Its performance pleasantly surprised me. Once tuned the first time, it will likely hold its tune if set up in a similar situation, such as mine, which is pretty much in the clear. Once tuned, its performance will surprise you. If you require an antenna with a small footprint at about half the price of the radial-free verticals on sale these days, this is an option you ought to consider. And if you change your mind about which bands you'd like to work, additional hamsticks are available from MFJ. It's quite a flexible system. In channel news, be sure to watch the Saturday YouTube live stream held at noon U.S. Mountain Time, which is 1900 UTC. The Saturday live stream is devoted to answering your questions, whether posed at dcasler.com/ask-dave or sent to hamradioanswers@gmail.com. I also try to answer questions posed during the live stream chat. If you have subscribed and clicked on the bell, you should get a notice as each session goes live. If you aren't, make sure the bell is clicked and also check your spam folder. You can also go directly to the live feed at youtube.com/c/davidkassler/live. Thanks for all your support, suggestions, and ideas. Please like and share this video. Your subscription gives YouTube your vote of confidence in my channel. If after subscribing you also click the bell, you'll get an email notification of every new video. I like to distribute knowledge widely, and my videos are free for the viewing on YouTube. Thank you for the 102 patrons who are supporting this channel via patreon.com And to those who drop a little something into the tip jar at ke0og.net/tip-jar. All is most gratefully acknowledged and appreciated. Also note that I have all the amateur extra training videos available on a thumb drive for US $49.99 postpaid in the US, so you don't need to be online to watch them. Of course, you can watch them freely on YouTube. The technician videos are similarly available for US $29.99. You can see all of these options at dcasler.com/support. Until we next meet, 73.